No local would have ever come close to this place. The main serial killer of Bologna, the biggest unsolved mystery of Bologna. Follow me if you dare. Bologna seems like a very safe and a very friendly place, but in reality there is a dark side to virtually any place in the world. And the more time you spend here, this is the thing, the more time you spend here, the more you realize that it is actually not as safe as it may seem at the beginning. Giacomo Leopardi, the 19th century Italian poet, even recalled how he was afraid to carry the money around the city when he stayed here, because he was afraid to get robbed under the porticos. So you see, it's always been like that. And today I want to take you to some places that most tourists just ignore. The places that are right there in the city center and that are, this is the other side of Bologna. And guys, do subscribe and get ready to explore much darker Bologna today with me. We're in the plain city center, and although you could never tell, but here, guys, there have been happening so many assassinations over the years, cruel and gruesome, and there are still signs of every single crime ever committed here. No local would have ever come close to this place voluntarily. Most tourists wrongfully believe that this place used to be a castle or a palace because of its name, Palazzo Re Enzo, the palace of King Enzo. First of all, there has never been a king in Bologna, but second of all, this place actually used to function as a prison and not as a palace, and also as the execution place. Let's go, I'll show you. See these wooden beams, guys? These are actually the remains of the medieval gallows. So this place used to be the main execution place in Bologna during the medieval times and later over the centuries. And now where tourists are passing by every single day and standing here and take photos and everything, where we are standing right now, tons of people used to be assassinated by hanging after being accused of virtually anything. Don't be surprised that these beams are located so high up and near the ceiling. There was a platform, like a real moving platform, that had to be moved around and brought here to allow people to climb up there before being hanged. So the next time you're in Bologna, guys, and walking around Palazzo Re Enzo, make sure to look up, because besides the beams that I was talking about, there are also these peculiar hooks up here that were used as a torture device. People were literally hooked up there with a rope, and then the executioner, first he pulled them up, and then he allowed them to fall, stopping them a short distance before reaching the earth, badly damaging their bodies, badly damaging their bone structure. And then these people were brought to prison to rot there and die from injuries. And wow, I have no words, honestly. I think this is a very, very cruel torture. What do you think? I had no idea before I began preparing this video about just how cruel some things used to be in Bologna. And the executioner himself, the main serial killer of Bologna, used to live right here. He was actually a very respectable man in the city, and nobles even used to invite him to their homes for special occasions like balls or fancy dinners, just in case, if they ever get accused, they'd have a friend who would supposedly take care of them, be gentle with them, and probably, hopefully, won't let them suffer. But yeah, that was a very strange, in my opinion, very strange dynamic of the medieval and later society in here, or all around the world, actually. But he used to live right here in this tower, which used to function as the female prison as well. And I hope that you can see that balcony over there, because this is the tower I was talking about, and the balcony used to run all around the tower. And the legend said that the wife of one of the early executioners had this particular hobby i.e. gardening, a very normal thing for someone whose husband's job is to slaughter people on a regular basis, I think. Anyway, she, according to the legend, has decorated this whole balcony with flowers. And even though the executioners have been changing over the centuries, and of course their wives as well, and there was no garden anymore on this balcony, there was this saying among those condemned to death that they were going to end up in Lazzarina's garden, because according to that legend, the name of that wife of the first executioner was Lazzarina. So yeah, they had this belief that they would end up in her garden after death. You know, guys, whenever I wander these streets of Bologna, these narrow streets especially, I can totally imagine all these true crime stories and how they happened here. And by the way, if you want even more tips and even more stories, unusual stories and hidden places, make sure to check out the link in the description, because I'm back to Patreon and I'm posting weekly travel tips, weekly travel posts, and also bi-weekly expat life update with everything that you might need to know if you are moving to Italy. And yes, guys, yes, including all the ways to stay away from the crime. Here, right across the street from the palace, in the late 19th century, there happened a crime that became the biggest unsolved mystery of Bologna. The mystery became known as the Delitto dei Coltelli, or the crime of Coltelli, which literally translates as the crime of knives. But Coltelli was actually the surname of one very rich family who owned one of these houses in this street. And it was during one night in late 19th century when the window of their house was opened all of a sudden, and a half-naked woman was screaming from there, crying and telling the people that her master was dead. The woman was obviously his servant, the servant of the house, and nobody knows if there was an illegal affair between the two or if the then head of the house forced the poor woman. But obviously the family accused her of murdering her master. What they didn't expect, though, was that that accusation caused a literal turmoil in the city. You see, here's the thing. Apparently, the society here in Bologna has always been very sensitive to all of the matters regarding the class. Even the nobles of the city considered that it was an attack at the poor servant because she was a servant and because of the class differences. And that turmoil caused the judges to reconsider their decision, and after different accusations and trials, she was proclaimed not guilty. This was an absolutely fascinating affair that has never happened before, or almost never happened before, and it definitely made all the headlines back then, but still to this day, the mystery remains who killed the master and the head of the Coltelli household. But not all victims were as fortunate as that nameless servant. Now, guys, imagine Bologna during late 15th century. Still quite the dark times, even though the Renaissance was already flourishing in Florence, but nevertheless, you know, the mysteries and witches and all the things linked to the witchcraft were still flourishing as well. Anyway, there was this period in the history of Bologna when there was one ruling family here, the Bentivoglio family, and one of the family rulers was married to Ginevra Sforza, who was coming from a very famous Italian family. But my story is not about her, and about her friend, a local woman from Bologna, a very smart one, but unfortunate. Gentile Budrioli studied astrology at the University of Bologna, which back then was considered a scientific discipline. And she was a skilled astrologist, which brought her to meet Ginevra Sforza, and the two eventually became friends. Besides being an astrologist, Gentile was also a skilled herbalist because she studied from the Franciscan friars who used to cultivate the medicinal herbs in their garden, and she learned how to create potions and how to grow these herbs herself. That and the fact that the Bentivoglios were losing their influence in the city was enough to proclaim Gentile Budrioli a witch. Even in a city like Bologna, which has never been huge on witch hunts and witch trials, but hers became the biggest and probably the most notorious witch hunt that happened in this city. And we are getting closer to where this sad story culminated. But regardless, the historians debate still to this day why Ginevra Sforza did not try to protect Gentile Budrioli, who was her friend. Nobody knows whether she didn't want to, or whether she couldn't, or maybe she was afraid to follow in her footsteps and face the same terrible destiny. But she did nothing according to the historical data. Gentile Budrioli was brought to the Inquisition because the seat of the Inquisition was located here in the convent of Saint Dominic. And after long and terrible tortures, she was forced to accept that she was guilty. Eventually, she was brought here to this piazza to be burned as a witch. And then, guys, her ashes, of course, were never buried. And apparently they flew with the wind over the streets of Bologna, and some people say that her spirit still haunts the streets of Bologna, asking for justice for Gentile. And I think that's enough crime for today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, this new type of video that I wanted to create for so long. And we did a very long job to prepare all these stories and to find them. I love finding them. I love history in general, and I love the history of Bologna. And if you are still watching, you now know what I was talking about. And yes, tell me in the comments if you like this type of video and if you'd like more of these videos in the future, because Italy is a real treasure of true crime stories, historical or not, but I can tell you so much more. I have so many more stories like this in store. So yes, I'm waiting for your feedback. I would really love to know if you enjoyed this kind of videos and if you'd like me to create more of them in various parts of Italy, of course. And having said that, of course, guys, I remind you to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, like and comment this video. And I will see you next time. Stay safe and visit Bologna, because it's a marvelous place, it's a beautiful city, and yes, it's pretty safe for tourists. So don't worry and come here. Happy travels, guys, and enjoy your day.